53 pages. That is not a typo. 53 pages of testimony from an accuser alleging sexual assault by a sitting president. Gone. Scrubbed from the Department of Justice database. And if you think that is a filing error, I have a government jet and a fishing rod in South Florida I would like to sell you. Because right now, while the country was watching the State of the Union, something far more consequential was happening behind the scenes. FBI agents, the very people this administration appointed and empowered, are turning on the White House. They are leaking documents, cooperating with congressional investigators, and blowing the whistle on what they say is a systematic cover-up reaching the highest levels of government. And when your own people start talking, the witch hunt defense stops working. But that is just the surface. What is underneath is where this story gets dangerous. To understand why this moment matters, you need to understand how extraordinary it is for FBI agents to go to Congress behind the back of their own director. The FBI is, by design, one of the most internally disciplined institutions in the American government. Agents spend entire careers under the golden rule: do not embarrass the Bureau. You do not talk to the press. You do not freelance. You do not go around the chain of command. When FBI personnel start reaching out to members of the House Oversight Committee with damaging information about their own leadership, that is not disgruntlement. That is a 5-alarm fire inside the building. Think of it this way. An FBI that has lost the confidence of its own agents is like a hospital where the surgeons do not trust the chief of medicine. The scalpels are still sharp, the operating rooms still work, but nobody believes the person in charge is making decisions for the right reasons. And in that environment, patients start dying. We have seen versions of this before in American history. During Watergate, it was an FBI deputy director, Mark Felt, later revealed as Deep Throat, who fed information to reporters because the institution itself had been compromised from the top. During the Saturday Night Massacre, it was career Justice Department officials who refused to carry out a president's order to fire the special prosecutor. The parallel is not perfect, but the pattern is consistent. When an administration tries to bend law enforcement to its political will, the institution eventually pushes back. Not loudly, not publicly, but through the slow, deliberate drip of information to the people who have the constitutional authority to investigate. That is what congressional oversight is designed for. It is the immune system of a democracy, messy, slow, sometimes politicized, but essential. And right now, that immune system is being activated by the very agents who swore an oath to uphold the law. The question that hangs over everything we are about to discuss is simple. Is this the moment the FBI broke, or the moment it started to fight back? So here's what's actually happening, according to multiple sources now speaking to Democratic members of Congress. Whistleblowers inside the FBI are reportedly providing information to the House Oversight Committee about the administration's handling of the Epstein files. According to Representative Garcia and other Democratic lawmakers, these sources allege that the Trump administration has actively worked to suppress evidence connected to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking network. The Drudge Report, which, whatever you think of its politics, still drives enormous traffic and signals where media attention is heading, ran a headline during the State of the Union: "Paper Bombshell, Epstein's Secret Files in Storage Units Across the USA." That is not a coincidence of timing, that is a signal. Simultaneously, the Department of Justice allegedly scrubbed references to Donald Trump from evidence files. And those 53 missing pages? They come from the testimony of an accuser who alleged she was sexually assaulted by Trump when she was a minor. Senator Dick Durbin and other lawmakers are now launching formal probes.
The White House predictably calls this a politically motivated attack. And look, if that were true, it would be a serious abuse of the congressional oversight process. But here's the problem with that defense. These are not outside critics or partisan operatives. These are FBI agents, people who work for Kash Patel, people who were vetted and employed by this administration's own appointees. When your own team starts leaking against you, you do not get to call it a conspiracy. You have to ask what they saw that made them willing to risk their careers. But wait, if the Epstein file suppression were the only story here, it would be damning enough. It's not, because at the exact same time, a completely separate set of FBI leaks is exposing something about Kash Patel's leadership that goes beyond ideology into raw incompetence. Here's the detail almost nobody is talking about, and this changes everything. According to whistleblower reports cited by Senator Durbin, the FBI's elite evidence reverse team was delayed in reaching the scene of a mass shooting at Brown University last December. The reason? There was no plane available. Kash Patel, the FBI director, was in South Florida using one of the Bureau's only 2 available jets. Let that settle in your mind for a moment. A mass shooting is unfolding at an American university. The FBI's specialized forensic team needs to get to the scene, and they can't, because their transportation is being used by the director for what sources describe as personal leisure travel. And it didn't stop there. When conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was murdered, the FBI's shooting reconstruction team needed to fly to Utah to process the scene. That deployment was also delayed by at least a full day because of what Durbin called the pilot shortage caused by Kash Patel's private flights. According to a source cited by Durbin, Patel told agents at a field office meeting, and I want you to hear this carefully, that if their office had golf, hockey, fishing, or hunting in beautiful locations, they were going to see a lot of him. He was not joking. He was bragging about using taxpayer-funded aircraft as his personal travel service. Patel's response to all of this? He disputes the allegations. 4 words. No explanation, no accounting, no transparency. Just denial.
Now here is where the hidden implications start stacking up, and each one is worse than the last. The first implication is operational, and it is more severe than the headlines suggest. Every hour an FBI response team is grounded is an hour that evidence degrades, witnesses scatter, and crime scenes are compromised. In the Brown University shooting, that delay was not just an inconvenience, it was a potential compromise of the entire forensic investigation. Evidence collection in the first hours after a mass shooting is not optional. It is the foundation of prosecution. Ballistic trajectories shift when debris is moved. DNA samples degrade with time and weather. Witness memories begin to distort within hours. If a case falls apart later because the crime scene was not processed in time, you can draw a direct line back to a government jet sitting on a tarmac in South Florida. And those families, the ones who lost someone at Brown University, they may never know that the investigation into their loved one's murder was compromised because the FBI director wanted to go fishing. And that is not even the worst part. The second implication is institutional. Right now, according to multiple reports, the FBI is experiencing an exodus unlike anything in its modern history. Roughly 1,000 agents and staff are either being forced out or quitting. Dave Sundberg, who led the FBI's Washington field office, supervising some 800 agents and staff, was pushed out by the administration. He spent more than 2 decades at the Bureau after serving in the Air Force and local law enforcement. He describes an agency where counterterrorism cases are being deprioritized so that agents can be reassigned to immigration enforcement, work that has never traditionally been the FBI's responsibility and that other agencies are specifically designed to handle. Cyber cases, espionage investigations, complex healthcare fraud, all of it getting less attention because the Bureau's human resources are being redirected to serve political priorities. Sundberg puts it plainly, the FBI can only accomplish its mission if it has the trust of the American public.
A victim of a crime, a witness to a kidnapping, a source with intelligence on a foreign adversary. These people have to trust the agent sitting across from them. And right now, every one of those conversations begins with the public having watched the FBI director behave in ways that would have been a career-ending embarrassment a decade ago. Trust is not a slogan, it is the operational infrastructure of law enforcement. Without it, the entire system degrades. But here is the implication that should keep you up at night. Pull on that thread and an entirely different picture emerges. What we're witnessing is not just mismanagement, it is the systematic hollowing out of the one federal institution designed to investigate the powerful. Think about what the FBI does that no other agency can do. It investigates public corruption. It runs counterintelligence operations against foreign governments trying to compromise American officials. It handles domestic terrorism. It builds the cases that hold powerful people accountable. Now ask yourself, who benefits when that institution is weakened? Who benefits when its best agents leave, its resources are diverted, its leadership is more interested in fishing trips than forensic response? The answer is anyone who has something to hide. And when you combine the operational gutting of the FBI with the simultaneous suppression of the Epstein files, with the scrubbing of evidence from DOJ databases, with the removal of senior leaders like Sundberg who refuse to let their offices be politicized, the pattern is not subtle, it is not hidden, it is happening in day broadlight, and the only question is whether anyone with the power to stop it actually will. So what happens next? There are a few possible paths forward, and none of them are simple. If the House Oversight Committee pushes hard on the whistleblower testimony, issuing subpoenas, demanding unredacted documents, holding public hearings, this could escalate into a full constitutional confrontation between Congress and the executive branch. Based on what we've seen from this administration's posture toward oversight, they will resist. They will claim executive privilege. They will stall. And the question becomes whether the courts intervene before the evidence disappears entirely. That is not a hypothetical concern. 53 pages are already gone. Every week that passes without accountability is a week where more documentation can vanish. A second scenario depends on the whistleblowers themselves. If more agents come forward, and the reporting suggests the current group is not small, the volume of information could become impossible to contain. Leaks have a momentum of their own. Once career professionals decide the institution they serve has been corrupted, the dam doesn't hold. We saw this with Watergate. We saw it with the Pentagon Papers. History doesn't repeat, but it has a rhythm. And right now, the tempo is accelerating. The third possibility is the most troubling. If Congress fails to act, if the courts defer, if the media cycle moves on to the next spectacle, then the precedent is set. A president can install a loyalist to run the FBI, divert its resources for personal use, suppress evidence connected to his own legal exposure, and purge anyone who objects. And if that precedent holds, it won't matter who occupies the White House next. The damage to the institution will already be done. Pull the lens back even further, and the stakes become global. The United States has spent decades positioning itself as the standard-bearer of the rule of law. Every time an American diplomat lectures another country about judicial independence or anti-corruption, the credibility of that message rests on whether America practices what it preaches. When the world watches the FBI director use government jets for leisure while crime scenes go unprocessed, when evidence vanishes from federal databases, when they watch career law enforcement professionals get purged for refusing to politicize their work, that credibility doesn't just weaken, it evaporates, and it doesn't come back quickly. It took a generation after Watergate to rebuild global confidence in American institutions. This time, the damage is arguably deeper because it is not hidden. It is being done openly, almost defiantly, as if daring anyone to stop it. Authoritarian leaders around the world are watching this moment very carefully, not because they're worried about American democracy, because they're taking notes. Every concession, every norm violated without consequence, every institution hollowed out, it all becomes a playbook. And the next leader who wants to consolidate power in Budapest or Ankara or Manila will point to Washington and say they did it first. So here's the question I want to leave you with. When FBI agents risk their careers to tell Congress what is happening inside their own agency, are they traitors to the chain of command, or are they the last line of defense for the institution itself? Your answer to that question probably says more about your view of power than it does about the FBI, whether you think authority should be questioned or simply obeyed. Think about it, and if you have an opinion, drop it in the comments, because this is a conversation that matters. If this helped you see something the headlines missed, consider subscribing and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because the more people who understand what is actually happening, the harder it becomes to pretend it is not. Documents disappear, testimony gets erased, agents get pushed out, but the truth has a stubborn habit of outliving the people who try to bury it. And right now, inside the FBI, that truth is looking for a way out.